Well, welcome to our first ever Unpresentable Parts Eve edition. Woohoo! I am
Yay!
Sam
Hmm.
Blake, and along with me is Jasmine Cherry. And
Hi.
we aim to make the unpresentable presentable. So, super excited to be able to have our first Eve edition today, and really happy to be here. How are you, Jazz?
I'm excited too. I'm glad we're finally doing this. We're ready, and I'm ready to go.
Oh, good. Well, today we are in our inaugural Eve edition. We are
Hmm.
going to actually talk about, I'll give you a theme here. This is us now. We're going to take some time to get to know each other, and you guys will get to know
Hmm.
us as we're growing in our relationship, getting to know each other. So we're super
Right.
excited about that. We're going to explore our identities, what makes us who we are. And so, just really kind of talking through that, what has really kind of marked our early life experiences. What, as do you want me to start? Kind of is grounded in.
Well, I did want to say this before. I mean, you can definitely go first, Sam. I have no problem with that. But I think for all the listeners, as you're embarking on this journey with us, that it's just, we think it's essential that you guys do know us, and as
Mhm.
we introduce ourselves and kind of set some of the context, as we'll continue to get to know each other throughout this year. So I'm excited about that. But you can definitely go ahead and take the wheel, Sam.
Yeah, I can do that. But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about the unpresentable things we feel today, right? What makes us
Ah,
what is
yes.
the yeah, what about us today coming into this podcast is
Mm,
unpresentable, or we'd rather kind of keep behind a hidden curtain and put our
mm,
best foot forward, right?
yeah.
So I'll start. I
All right.
think for me,
Okay.
I had some anxieties that I was bringing into from yesterday into today. There's some interactions, some just how you talk to somebody or something happens and you mull it over and mull it over and mull it over in your head, and just like that anxiety
Mm,
part. And so I think coming into our time together, I wanted so much to just be able to be present, but while warring with the stomach pit anxieties of just some interactions that are kind of like residual. So that's kind of the unpresentable thing for me today. It's how can I give here authentically and be real, right? Be real, not
hmm.
come here faking it. Like, oh yeah, life is great, but
Right.
knowing no, I'm actually feeling a little bit of stuff here, but I'm coming here fully present and authentic.
Yeah. Well, for me, y'all. So I do feel like it's just time for me either to get a new wardrobe or what. I do feel like I've been bumming it probably a little bit too much. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. And I know sometimes you hear the saying, sometimes it's true, not all the time. When you look good, you feel good, right? That's
Mm.
not true for all the time now. But I do think I'm like, okay, Jasmine, let's make sure. Um, Especially now as I'm looking for a job, right? And you get comfortable at home as you're applying, and then you're just around the house, and so it's just you. So, but I do think I'm like, all right, let me make sure shaving these armpits. I'm doing like just taking care of me. Just keeping up with myself. I do think it'll help me, in the start of your day. You just get out, put on some, nice comfy clothes, whatever that is. But I have been noticing that, like, all right, Jasmine, now, okay, girl.
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
funny that you said that. I actually blew off an eyebrow appointment to do this, so mine looking a little crazy right now, but that's all right. But I think I'm really excited about doing this podcast with you, Jazz, because I think that as we grow to get to know each other, I think even the things we've talked about, what we want to discuss, it's super exciting. But I also think, oh my goodness, it's pretty scary too, to have these
Yeah.
conversations with people I don't know who are going to be hearing me and don't know who I am, don't
It's
know where I
true.
come from, don't understand, my frame of thought, all of those different
Hmm.
things. And I thought maybe as we start off our Eve edition of Unpresentable Parts, we can
Hmm.
let people into a little bit of who we are and what
Right.
makes us think the way we think, what drives us, and different things like that. And I think just kind of going back to the roots of my identity and our identity. I think when we did the first one, Unpresentable Parts with the guys, we talked a little bit about that, but being able to do that
Hmm.
just one on one with the girls would be really
Yes.
nice. And so, like, I think where I come from, right? Like my family dynamics. I come from the West Indies. I was raised in St. Lucia in the country, so I'm a country girl, which is really funny, Jazz, because being a country girl,
Mm.
actually, it's what a lot of people don't know is that St. Lucia, the most popular music. Do you know what the most popular music in St. Lucia is? Just take a guess.
No.
Country and
Um,
Western.
no.
Yes, yes,
No. I would have never guessed.
girl. I grew up, and you probably don't even know these names on Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn,
Nope.
Jim
What?
Reeves. Girl, yes. Yes, Crystal Gale.
Okay.
Girl.
No, I did not know this.
Yeah. And then on Saturdays, our big thing was either the karate movies or the country and on Sundays, actually Sunday afternoons was the country and Western movies.
Really?
I'm being very serious. Even right now on our island, country and Western dances are a big deal. So
Wow.
it's so interesting, right? I grew up on an island, and I'll have to tell you the story one day about why that is, why country and Western is such a big deal
Okay.
in St. Lucia. There is history
All
behind
right.
that. But I grew up a country girl. I grew up I love big trucks. I love cowgirl boots. That's a paradigm for me, which seems so off, right? From someone who's from the Caribbean. And as I come to the US and recognize some things and learn some things, that it's just all the paradoxes that my life
Hmm.
is. I grew up country and Western. Culturally, it was country music, reggae, soca, calypso, you
Hmm.
know. Um, my island, it's mainstream. The language of culture, the language of business, the language of school is British English, because it was
Okay.
once a British colony. And but the culture, the home culture, is very French because there's also a
Mm.
French colony. So I feel like I've grown up with so many different pieces of the African
Hmm.
diaspora, the colonialism. What that's what it is, right?
Right.
When you colonization and on all of that.
Right.
And so
The
um,
colonizers.
yes, and so my childhood memories are they're so enmeshed with so much. And
Hmm.
I think as I have grown up in different parts, like coming into the US and having to kind of like figure out which one am I? Am I
Mm.
country and Western? Am I West Indian, traditional? Am I, it's just all of those different things. So I think my childhood
Right.
experiences, I just remember them being so full of so many different things. And I didn't,
Mm.
and also I lived in two worlds. I had family that was well off and family that wasn't. And even with the family that
Mm.
wasn't, I didn't know I was poor because we always had food, and then the family
Hmm.
that had more, it just, I think I grew up in never having a specific world that was,
Okay.
I don't know how to explain it. I didn't have a specific space that I belonged in.
Hmm.
And that's
That makes
that
sense.
wasn't, yeah. So what about you?
Right. So me, um, coming from the States, coming from Long Beach, California, where I was born and raised, I grew up with a single mother, and my father and my mother had split. So before I was born, so there was not a male presence really there. Um,
Mm,
and so I have an older brother. We're 12 years apart. And it's a similar story to his as well. So his father wasn't much in his life, more than mine for sure, but I think growing up in poverty or growing up on welfare, and in certain ways, similar to you, like you didn't know you were poor. And maybe because everyone I was with, hanging around with, we were kind of in the same boat.
Mhm.
However, when I started to go to public school, my mom made sure that we went to great school districts. So the public schools
Mm.
were great. And so then you're able to see how other people live and you're able to see those things. But I do think as I got older that I do think I carried some shame with me as far as
Mm.
dad's not in the picture. I just felt like I was this walking stereotype. And knowing a lot of my family, right, we're raised in some rough parts, and a lot of my family is from Compton in LA, and um, we had some rough times, but we also had some great times too. But I think once I
Mhm.
got into other spaces, I remember just being self-conscious about how do people see me? Will they see me
Mm.
as this walking stereotype? Will they see me all the things I do not have? And I grew up with kind of fake it till you make it. Although we don't have it, either
Mm.
act like you have it or act like you're about to have it or whatever. Like to so people, my mom was trying to probably create this pride in me, which is
Mm.
great, right? All parents want that for their children, but I think it was hard to see the different worlds that I was in, and then being on the swim team, right? There's not a lot of
Mm.
black folks on the swim team. So then
Mhm.
going over there, other folks' houses for meetings and all this stuff, you see how other people live. I'm like, wow, and so I do feel like just having those two sides, and of course having friends. Long Beach is a very diverse city, so I had friends from all walks of life, and it was really great. But I don't know. It was hard to. I was trying to fight not to walk into the world feeling without, right? I'm already a minority. And then I feel like I have
Mhm.
all these other things stacked up against me in other people's eyes.
Mm.
So yeah, that was very interesting. And that really has played a big role in my life, or a big piece of my life growing up, even outside of high school. I remember just a real quick story for Greg and I, our wedding, when we were in Kentucky. And it's so crazy. Like, I remember we're talking about the music and this, I remember just being so like, I don't want people to think we are ghetto with the music that we're going to play. And
Mm.
I was so like obsessed on that point. I'm like, wow. So it
Mm.
didn't really occur to me until years later about that, but just seeing how those things played, like as we were going to bring all different types of people, how are they going to view us? Are they going to view us as
Mm.
these hooligans? But
Mhm.
I'm like, wow, it's our wedding. Oh, it's about us. Why am I thinking about what everybody else thinks about our culture and what we like? If they don't like
Mhm.
it, they shouldn't be there. But so
Mm.
things like that have definitely played a role in my life.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that you went so deep with that, Jazz, and was just so vulnerable with those parts of your life. And I think even as you talked about the societal stuff, because I think there's that at your wedding, how that played into it. Because I remember
Right.
coming to the US, I came to Florida when I was 14 years old, 10th grade. And the school I went to was Colonial High School. And Colonial High
Mm,
School at the time, they had split the following year, but the year I came into Colonial High School, it was, you got to understand, Florida, what it is now, Orlando, what it is now, because I was in Orlando, it is
mm-hmm.
not what it was then.
Wow.
And I had to grow into that, right? Remember, I'm coming from country and Western. I come
Mm-hmm.
and Caribbean as well. So it's a a big blend. So I come to the US and my high school is it's like half of it is are Hicks, and
Mm.
the part
Okay.
of it are Puerto Ricans and
Mm,
Black American kids. At the time, I was the only West Indian
mm.
student
Wow.
that I was aware of in my high school. There was one
Mm-hmm.
more kid that I would later learn had Jamaican roots, and we actually became good friends. But
Right.
and I bring this up to say I connected with the Hicks because that's
Mm.
what everybody called them. That's I'm not trying to be all, but that's what in high school that's what we
Mm-hmm.
were. It was like the country and western kids. Because in
Mm.
high school you have your labels, you know. And
Right.
so I
Yes.
connected with the
Mm-hmm.
kids who were country and Western who, because there was that similarity, but it alienated me from the African American kids.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it was so hard coming in and fitting in. But then with the kids who were country and Western, what I didn't and what I had to learn was most of them came from very racist families. In my
Mhm.
high school, I had to learn that a lot of my people that I connected with in high school also would say things to me like, I can never take you home. You can never come to my town.
Mhm.
There's a town called Christmas, Florida. My aunt was
Wow.
always like, do not go anywhere with those people. There are a lot of,
Wow.
KKK is big there. So I had to learn what the KKK was
Mm.
coming in. And so it's coming into the United States and going, okay, here's how I was raised. This was all wonderful and it seemed great. But when I come to the US, there's a connotation to this. There's an
Yeah.
exclusiveness that I can't really fully participate in because I'm not supposed to like this, and because I like it I'm excluded, and because I get along with this
Right.
group I'm excluded from a group that looks like me, but we look alike but we're not very similar in culture.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got the Hispanic kids in between, so we connected culturally too because we're from the Caribbean. And so it
Right.
was just very interesting, Jazz. And I think even as you talked about your roots, I also uh, faced abuse in my childhood. And so not belonging in any world, having all these separate things, I was definitely one who held a lot inside. So I
Mhm.
performed. I just learned how to perform. And so the
Yeah.
societal ex, um, expectations, or, who you're supposed to be or look like a certain thing. So it's how do you
Mhm.
do that? And it's interesting because I think even as I hear your story, you grew up in a way where you can assimilate anywhere, but then still
Mhm.
haunted by this where I come from, and,
Right.
and almost it almost feels like a lot of my life I've had imposter syndrome.
Mm. Mm.
you know, I'm going to be found out, that I don't really
Mm.
belong here, that
Yeah.
I don't really have a place, I don't really have a home. So I think it's learning how to mature through that, how to grow through that. Those, I think those were a lot of the things that I was facing coming into this country. Learning
Right.
how to be dealing with my own, growing into that, to go, who am I now, right? All those things were shaping me along the way,
Yeah.
all those different
Yeah.
pieces. And I do think a very pivotal moment for me, though, that was really significant in my influencing my identity is it was 2018.
Mm.
And that's a lot,
Okay.
2018. I've have two kids now. I've grown up here in the United States. I've been shaped, I've learned, I've grown, I've gone through a million different things. I've kind of learning my space spiritually, emotionally, it's just so much all over the place. And I
Yeah.
can't wait for us to explore those things more. But in
Mhm.
2018, I got a phone call and it rocked my world. I was home. It was just a normal day, and I got a phone call, and uh, the phone call in the conversation said, "Listen, um, my abuser's name was Gregory. Said Gregory died."
Mm. Wow.
And like literally, I didn't like even when I say it, I catch my
Mm.
breath, because in that moment I felt like my world shifted,
Mhm.
because I had never lived in a world where my abuser didn't exist. And in that moment, I realized I had been living as a victim all my life.
Wow.
It was the first time I felt like everything. Yeah, I never felt like I belonged in a world, but I held a lot inside, but I didn't realize there's this overarching thing where I was controlled in some sense, as also saw myself as a
Mm.
victim my whole life.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd done therapy, I'd done all those things, but literally in that moment, it's like the world shifted. It just felt like it stopped, and I had to
Wow.
learn how to exist in a world where I wasn't living under the victimization of my abuser, even
Mm.
if they hadn't been in my life. For years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
That's
still
trauma.
living my life. Yes. And so I think that was such a huge, significant shift for me with my identity. And there's so many lessons I learned through that. So many, it was definitely a huge turning point, but so many lessons, so many challenges. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm saying, but it all contributes to who I am now. It's
Mhm.
that I had to learn who this person is, who does not live in a world where her abuser is, not 6 feet under. And then
Mm.
also deal with how did I feel about that, and
Right.
who am I then? I, I don't know who am I outside of this, and I thought I
Right.
did, but I also didn't
Right.
realize I was seeing myself through that lens for so long, and how much control
Wow,
it had
Sam.
over me. So yeah, hopefully as the people, as you guys were listening, this is flowing for you. This is us kind of sharing all the this, this is who we are, and,
Yeah.
and working through it. But it was a big shift for me, that access to, that's how many years ago? 6, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, it's 6 years ago. So I think it's after 2018, I am 6 years
Mhm.
in to this new person. And imagine all the things that have happened:
Yeah.
racial pandemic,
Right.
health pandemic, COVID pandemic,
Mhm.
you know, personal health things. I'm this new person
Yeah.
navigating this new space while learning who I am.
Right. I know you would think, or most people would probably think you would just be celebrating, right? And it's crazy. It's very layered, right? Things like
Hmm.
that. Um, for me, a pivotal moment, one of them. Um, so growing up, I think some parents can do this. I feel like me, as my first time being a parent, I'm probably more aware of this now. Is I think my mother, she did such an amazing job, right? And there's so much that you can do by yourself, but
Mm,
um, I think she tried to show me a lot of things that she was not exposed to, especially when it came to education, all these things, and in a way, she kind of was writing the story for me and not letting me write the
mm,
story. And so, even now I'm thinking again, my daughter's only 4, but when she gets to a point where, and even now, right, how you want to empower your children to be able to make decisions. I don't think my mother knew how to do that well.
mm,
And I think she had certain goals for me that she wanted me to do.
mm,
And so I think that what it did, I think the downside of it was that it did not give me strength to make my own decisions. Once I went to
mm,
college, what do I want to do? Because now I'm thinking, okay, what would my mom want me to do? Um,
mm,
and it was kind of her voice in my head, and I didn't have my own. And so I think that was a bit of the downfall. And I'm sure that was definitely not her intention, right? She wants me to
mhm,
be successful and wants me to do all these things. So many decisions were made for me, and I know I'm sure I made some as well, um, so but so once I got older, it was really hard, right? It's made me a people pleaser. It made me so concerned about what other people want instead of, I feel like I couldn't even hear my own voice, or if I did, I
mm,
would just bury it because I'm like, well, believe in or what I think. In which most people, when they meet me, they think I'm outgoing and so friendly, and they would probably never think about these things.
mm,
But I'm like, yes, really, it has really been just kind of like paralyzing that fear of making my decision. So in 2019, having a daughter, or about 3 months before the pandemic, so she was born in December, but that really rocked my world and was a pivotal point because now this is okay, Jasmin. This is your body. This is your daughter, and how you want to raise her and help her and try whatever it is. If you want to breastfeed, not breastfeed, like just think about everything would give me so much anxiety. And I'm like, somebody please
mm,
tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do and I will do it. But it was like, no, 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 Jasmin, this is you. This is, and your husband, obviously, in my
Mm,
case, right? Having a partner with me, and God there. But like, Jasmin, nobody's about to force you to do anything. So what you gonna do? What you want to do? Do you want to breastfeed her? Do you want to give her formula? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Like, whatever you want to do. And that scared the living daylights out of me, Sam. I was like,
mm,
oh, what? Why did I even decide to have a child? Why did this happen? Because I'm so incapable. I'm so
mm,
incompetent. I'm thinking all that um, I am I am not because I can't trust my voice. And, this is my husband's first child too, so he's kind of like, just choose something, go for it. I'm with you, whatever you want to do.
mm,
And
mhm.
when people say that to that can be the most scariest thing because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, they don't have an opinion. They're looking for me to have an opinion, but I'm looking at you to have an opinion. So then I can,
Mm,
so I've worked on that through therapy too. But just, yeah, the past 4 years have really been, what do I want to do? You
mm,
know, yes, it's been very, very tough for me because of that. And just believing in myself and not being afraid to fail and to, or not even fail. That can be a harsh word. Fail or just some things might not go as planned, but it's okay. Just try it. It's all right. Just
yeah.
go for what, just do something. Just don't stand still. And a lot of
Mhm,
people's, that whole fight, flight, or freeze
mm,
response, I'm the freeze. And I was finally telling my therapist, I'm like, look, I'm tired of being frozen now. Okay.
mm.
So,
Yes.
so yeah, yeah, I'm still working through it, but I've come a long way. But I definitely feel like having a daughter was the thing where it's like, wow, Jasmin, you know, what do you want to do?
Mm. That is really, I think a lot of women feel that, Jazz, because and it goes back to that imposter syndrome. I think a lot of women feel that, and I think I love that you talk about the people pleasing part because, and you say, oh, people wouldn't think that about me. Girl, I get that. I get that. I work in the ministry. I help women sit and study the Bible with women, help families, and it can feel, I especially uh, prior to 2018, that imposter syndrome. It can feel like that because you're coming into
Mm,
that room and you're supposed to know what to do. You're supposed to know what to say. You're supposed
yeah.
and then you try to do that, and then you make colossal mistakes. And now you feel like I never belonged anyway. I should have never
Mm,
been there. I shouldn't have even been, and it's that cycle, kind of like what you're saying. And I think when you say the freeze flight, the fight, flight or freeze, interestingly enough, I like you, I'm a freezer. I
mm.
freeze. I am
Wow.
frozen. Now you wouldn't
Yeah.
know it on the
No.
outside because on the outside I'm fighting you tooth and nail because I was trained to fight. My grandmother, growing up, my grandmother would say I was at because and I looking back, it makes sense, right? I had so much anger inside. I was so frozen inside from my pain, from my, abuse that nobody else knew, didn't feel
Mm,
protected, didn't feel like I was a fighter. I fought everybody. You look at me wrong, I'm fighting you. Talk about my mom, I'm fighting you. And I funny thing, guys, I never fought girls, I always fought boys. My whole life I fought
wow.
boys. And it makes sense
Wow.
now, but it didn't
Wow.
then. And so my grandmother, because so many people would keep coming to her house to tell her I got in a fight with their kid again, that her thing would be, I don't care what, she would say, oh yeah, she'd speak in Creole to them and go, mm-hmm. Oh, mwakay palepi, okay, okay. Oh, and then they'd leave and she'd say, did you beat him up?
Mm,
And I'd be like, yeah. She goes, you better, because if you don't beat him up, I'm going to beat you. So it
mm.
was, if you're going to fight, you better win.
Right.
And so in my fight, flight, or freeze, I froze inside, but I fought outside. And so what you're saying is, and the decision making, oh my goodness, it was like, Tim can attest to this. I would be at the grocery store. If he asked
Hmm.
me to buy one specific brand or can, I know this, people will not believe this about me. I literally would call Tim 3 or 4 times. They don't have this one. Should I get this one? What about this one? Oh, what do
Mm,
you? this one. And I still do this, but I'm
Yeah.
better. I'm better. I'm cognizant
Yeah.
of it because I have
Mhm.
language for it. But the
Yeah.
decision making, the desire to please, I want to be liked.
Right. Yeah. Mhm. Right.
But that has also been the thing that has been my biggest source of pain is the
Mm.
desire to be liked. And I think that is where I'm so grateful for my relationship with God because though I did all this work, right? Became a Christian in
Mhm.
college, really started to work towards my identity being in Christ, being formed by Christ.
Mhm.
What I did was I transferred my people pleasing from uh, the unhealthy people in the world, in the secular world, to
Mhm.
transferring it to people in the church.
Mm. Mhm. Yep.
And so my people pleasing didn't stop. It just made me a really eager leader, which was
Mhm.
unhealthy
Yeah.
because my motivations were to please the people that were leading me. Like I want to be good for this person and not realizing how much once again that the idolatry, right?
Mhm.
That my identity,
Wow.
there was so much idolatry ladled in it because, if I did a lesson, I want to make sure, does everybody feel good? Are we all good? No one's
Mhm.
really mad. And it was a great
Right.
lesson. And Sam, it was good. It was good. I needed you to like that. I needed you to be moved by that. And
Yes.
not really realizing, oh my goodness, this all comes from my childhood. This comes from me wanting to
Crazy.
please, me not wanting to stand out too much because if I rock the boat too much, then
Mhm.
someone's going to dig deeper and may realize I'm not supposed to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, is that making sense? Is it coming?
It it does. It does. And how so many things stimulate from come from our those core memories that we have and in our environment and all those things. So it's so crazy, right? Things that happened to us when we we're 4, 5, 6, 7 through 10, whatever. It's like, wow, we still can deal with those things as an adult, and you would think maybe we would be over that, and but it's okay, right? Because we're all works in progress. We are working. It's about the journey, right? Not just the end result, but we're working on
Mhm.
those things. And like how you said, you have the language for it. You're more self-aware, so it helps you so much
Yes.
more now. So amen, right? Amen for the growth. But it is crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And I've learned to not shame myself about it because I can
Mm.
be the shame girl and can walk with my head down. But it's like, here's those unpresentable parts, these things about me,
Yes.
but I'm
Yes. But
okay. Like we all have unpresentable parts.
honestly, Jazz, sometimes I think you mentioned something. You said shame, right? Brene Brown. I love Brene
Hmm.
Brown. I don't know if you've ever read her stuff, but she has this quote where she says, guilt says, I have done something bad. Shame
Mm.
says, I am bad.
Our bed, yes. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm a quote girl. I pick up quotes all over the place. I love them. I probably have a million Pinterest quotes saved. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these quotes. I'm going to find a way to use them. But I love that you said that because it also you realize why a lot of my people pleasing, a lot of that came from shame of
Mm.
that I wasn't good enough, shame
Yeah.
that and it just it's you don't realize it. You don't realize those things are driving you. And as women, it's these expectations in society. We're constantly trying to reach them.
Yes.
And I think it hurts relationship because we're so busy trying to hide our true selves. We actually
Yes.
miss out on connecting with each other and having not it's not commiseration. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it is connect. It is connecting in a
Mhm.
way that's authentic, where
Yeah.
it's not full of judgment. And I think we miss so much of those spaces because we're
Yeah.
so afraid. We have so much shame. We look at ourselves as bad. I know I'm bad. I am not I have done something bad. I'm bad.
Yes.
Muddle over. I make a mistake, and it's no longer I made a mistake, it's I am a mistake. I am a mistake.
Mhm. Yep.
I've completely messed this up. And so it just, which is really interesting. Like we got a puppy recently, and you can see how this thing comes into play. I didn't know to buy a smaller kennel for the puppy.
Okay.
So we had too big of the kennel was too big. And so
Okay.
trying to train the puppy, I had already made at least three different mistakes. And in my mind, it was like, I am a mess. How could I do this? How could I
Mm.
not know this? How can I, I've totally messed this puppy up for life. Here I go again.
Mm.
And it's just so ridiculous how quickly, you get healthy, but how quickly
Yeah.
you can go
Yeah.
right back to the what someone would call stinking thinking. That
Mm.
I am bad, I am not good at this, I am not just at this, but I'm not good at anything. And
Right.
just kind of going back to, wait, God has given me so many, which is where coming back to the faith part, right? How have I been trying to use my new identity in Christ, and really
Yeah.
uh, how God kind of opens your eyes to see where you're at. And I love that, right? Because
Mhm.
he's so patient.
Amen.
Because literally, I'm
Oh.
27 years old spiritually this year. I mean, it was 20 years of me, like 21 years of me being like this.
Mhm.
And I thought I
Yeah.
was good. And how so girl, I thought, oh, look at me, I'm spiritual, I'm helping people while I'm having imposter syndrome, but I'm thinking I'm a good Christian girl. I'm just,
Mhm.
and people are looking from the outside thinking she's so spiritual and she's so
Yeah.
strong and she's so, and it's not like those things are wrong. It's that, yeah,
Right,
no,
right.
I can, it's like learning, kind of like in this journey, this new six year of my 27 years. uh, it's this journey where we have more information now. We have
Mhm.
more willingness to go to therapy now. I mean, I've been doing
Right.
therapy my whole life, I feel like, but a deeper depth, a deeper understanding, a deeper acceptance of it. So we're
Yes.
learning we can hold all those spaces, right? I can be strong and I
Right.
can be weak.
Yep. Yep.
I can be
You be both.
confident, but I can also be insecure. And that dichotomy isn't
Mhm.
necessarily a bad thing. It's this
Right.
paradox, right? It's not a bad thing. It's that
Yes.
kind of going back to, okay, now I am actually understanding a bit more. Oh, when I am weak, then I am strong. It makes more sense to me in Christ, right? I can apply that to
Mhm.
my spiritual doctrine is starting to shape me in a different way, in a healthier way, because I'm healthier
Right.
emotionally. I'm healthier
Right.
spiritually. I'm not being defined by my abuser.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knew
Absolutely.
that, there's a scripture, I believe it's in Kings. I can reference, sometimes I make a horrible job. So if someone's listening and they know what it is, where it is, fantastic. But it talks about how at one point the Israelites worship other gods alongside God.
Mhm.
And I realized,
Mm.
whoa, I have been worshiping
Deep.
my abuser. He was Lord of my life, even
Mm.
after I made Jesus Lord of my life. That
Mhm.
my motivations, my life, my decisions were still being controlled to some degree by him, and I hadn't fully given it over to Christ. And all those experiences that made me who I am, along with the
Mhm.
abuse, God was working to refine it. And he was putting me in spaces where I can identify with many different people. I can connect with many different people. It's not that I was an imposter. It's that God gave me several different
Mhm.
avenues and experiences that
Yeah.
I can sit with the super wealthy. I can
Yeah.
sit on a dirt floor with the super poor. And it didn't mean I was an imposter. It didn't mean
Mhm.
I was not authentic. I could be authentic in all those spaces.
Yeah.
But life labels us and tells us we need to be this, we need to be that, we need to be here.
Mhm.
We either need to be in this clique, like when I came into the United States and as a high school, I couldn't be with the Hicks, or I had to
Yeah.
be with the Puerto Rican kids or the black kids because I look like the black kids, or I identify with the Puerto Rican kids culturally because of the Caribbean. And coming into where Paul says, I can be all things, I can be I'm all things to everyone. I'm all things to all man.
Yeah.
Learning how to do that in a healthy way while dealing with my people pleasing nature,
Mm-hmm.
while dealing with my trauma, while sometimes not knowing I'm really a people pleaser and and ruled by my trauma. But God being so patient and all of that and
Yeah.
loving me through all of
Right.
that. I think
It's amazing.
honestly that has gotten me through it in so many ways because it doesn't make sense to me. Like
Right.
that kind of love doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
That kind of acceptance doesn't make sense to me. Uh,
Right.
it, it, I can't wrap my head around it, but I know that this person now, it's not who I was 6 years ago. I think that I have been talking a lot. and
It's all right.
and just so you know, because you're getting to know me, right? I am
Right.
actually a true introvert. I am a true introvert. So deep conversations, I can talk for hours. Small
Mm-hmm.
talk, I'm gonna fall asleep on you in 2 minutes. I despise small talk. Okay. So I wanna make sure I kind of just stop for a minute and give you time before we have to end this podcast because I'm so excited. We're gonna have so much more time to talk about so many more things. But just for
Mm-hmm.
you to, get some of your thoughts in there before we
Okay.
sign off with our viewers or our
Okay.
listeners.
Yes. Well, thanks, Sam. Um, and because you're such an example for me, it's just so easy to sit up here and listen to you. I'm like, where is my
Mm.
popcorn? Okay, where are my M&Ms? Let me go ahead and listen to you.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, but yes, everyone, we are getting to know each other, and I'm really excited. I like what you say about the different boxes that you have fit in, and that I think it's amazing because how many lives and experiences and things you're able to come in contact with throughout those different boxes. And although a lot of things are changing, I do still feel like it could be hard, especially growing up, right? When it was rigid. Here are the rules, and um, it's like we're multifaceted, right? We have so many different layers to us. And if I was in one box, right, I'm on the swim team, I'm with predominantly white girls, and you're a part of this different world here in high school. And sometimes high school, middle school, I'm sure it can be the worst for many people. And that's where a lot of people start to learn about the divisions of things,
Mhm.
right? Which sucks. I'm like, oh, sometimes I think about that for my child. Again, she's only 4, but I'm like, man, she's gonna learn some stuff when she
Mhm.
gets into the public spaces. Um,
Mhm.
but it was hard for me to navigate myself. I fit in these different boxes too, and that because I fit in this box doesn't mean that I look down on the other one, And it's
Mhm.
really a blessing, and it makes us, full dynamic people that have these different experiences and how we're able to touch other people's lives and that they touch our lives, right? So
Mhm.
it's like it's not a bad thing, but I hate that that's what we grew up on, is that this is you and
Mhm.
that's it. And I feel like becoming a Christian into our fellowship, it was just now that you have been baptized, you are reborn, you are a Christian, you know, now we're just in this one box. Everybody's in one box and it's titled God. So like
Mm.
nothing else. And that's really hard because that's not realistic,
Mhm.
And I feel like, sure, in heaven, but heaven's still going to be diverse, right? Yada, yada, whatever.
Mm.
But like, it's like, okay, we try to erase, right? We want to erase race. We want to erase whatever it is that's not of God, erase it all. And now we're all coming. And it's like, we're all the same. And we're not.
Mhm.
And I think we do a disservice, as a Christian fellowship when we treat it like that. And so I feel like, we've been learning the hard way, of talking about these issues and these different boxes, because we live in the world. These things are happening. So I just appreciate you saying that and knowing like how much it has just shaped your life. Like these are good things, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not bad. So I've learned to become more confident in knowing. You know, I know some people talk about the good old code switch, which is a real
Mhm.
thing, but
Mhm.
it's like how do I still stay true to myself in these different environments?
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that, Jazz, and I think it really leads into kind of as we are closing our time with our viewers. I do want to encourage anyone who's listening to us right now. I keep saying viewers, but listeners. I do encourage anyone who's listening to us right now to kind of think through your own identity,
Mm-hmm.
and really maybe today or tomorrow, this month, which is Women's Month. It's Women's Month, guys.
Yeah.
Share your story with another person, another woman. And I
Mm-hmm.
love, Jazz. I think this leads us into kind of the premise really of what we're going to be doing with the Eve unpresentable parts. Is you talked about that box, that Jesus box, that it almost it almost leads us to a place of we come in, and I can only speak about our tribe, right, our fellowship of churches, because that's where I'm. But we
Mm-hmm.
come in and we belong to this fellowship of churches, and we're in our box, and it's this level of conformity and uniformity.
Mm-hmm.
But when you conform and you're uniform, you're conforming and uniform to one thing. And the truth is that it
Mm.
hasn't been to Christ.
Mm.
It has
Mm.
been to dominant culture of our tribe.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
say that to say, coming from what I come from in the Caribbean, my dominant culture of language, of education, and
Mm-hmm.
even uh, it was British and French, and
Yeah.
then country and western, so there were things that influence, and you conform to, and we can do the same thing in the church. We come in and lose all the parts of us. You've lost many parts of you, or left it
Right.
behind, right? And
Right.
so as we are doing this podcast, we're going to talk about how to hold all those spaces, how to be fully you in your
Mm-hmm.
community, in your tribe. You don't have to leave it
Right.
to be fully you. We have Christ. We're in, we're buried with him, raised, we're raised with him in life, in new life, and we get to live our lives. So as you're thinking through your identity, who are you? Do
Mm.
you know who you are?
Yeah.
You know what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what triggers you, what is your attachment style, how do you who are you, what has
Yeah.
formed you and shaped you, what are some things you may need to deal with in order to move forward. And so
Mm.
as we're throwing these questions at you, we're going to hit those a lot. Like for me,
Yeah.
Jasmine, you don't know this about me, but before I became a Christian, before I, 20 some years ago, I worked in an abortion clinic. You know,
Mm.
I,
Wow.
I taught in the inner city at one point. I had to learn how to how to code switch. I didn't even know what that meant until I lived in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles and had to learn that. I've worked several different jobs. There's so many different parts of me that people don't know and don't
Mm-hmm.
don't talk through. and
Right.
and you kind of just share it when you're in a study with someone. You're like, oh, here's the bad stuff I've done, but okay, is it though? Let's talk through that. Why did
Mm-hmm.
you choose that career? Why did you choose that job? I worked at U-Haul.
Right. Yeah.
There are lots of different things. I went to three different universities and graduated in my fourth one. So it's like there's so many different parts of us. So as we're
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, we want to explore those things. So if you
Yeah.
are listening to us, we want to know what would you like us to explore? What are some topics
Mm-hmm.
you would like? What is the pot? Where can they leave us that information, Jazz? Where
So,
does our website be?
yes, yes, it's www.unpresentablepartspod.com. And you can go there, you can comment on the episode. You can also talk about things that you do want to hear, that you do want to discuss. And we really want to create just a safe space for women and women of color too to talk about their experiences and as we share ours. So we'll get into it. We do want to talk about gender roles, and we want to talk about sexuality, and we want to talk about abortion, and we want to talk about mental health, physical health. We want to talk about it all and our perspectives and what we've been through. So I'm so excited. So please, if you have any comments, anything you would like to discuss, please visit www.unpresentablepartspod.com.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to listening to each other, talking to
Mm-hmm.
you guys. We hope you were able to be edified through our time listening with us. And so until next time, bye for now. And oh,
Peace.
wait, I forgot to ask them, Jazz. I forgot to ask them, guys, while you're doing all the other stuff with sharing your story and looking up your identity, one of the things we want you to actually sit down and talk to yourself first and say, what's unpresentable about me today? And how can I show
Mm,
up in the world authentically despite what I feel is unpresentable?
mm. Go ahead, shave
And
those
so
armpits.
shave the armpits, shave the legs, get your eyebrows done. All right, ladies, you have a wonderful day. Until next time.
Bye.